What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we're going to be taking a look at my opinion on the top 5 best first pocket knives for people who are transitioning out of just carrying a sharpened piece of metal in their pocket into a world where they've realized, hey, not all folding knives are created equal. Some are created more purpose-oriented, more utility-oriented. So keep that in mind as we go through this list. Everything that's going to be on my list is going to be about $50 or less, which I think is a really good starting point for a lot of people. That brings me into my next point. A lot of you are wondering, why do you have an XM18 out there? That's definitely not a $50 or less pocket knife. You're right, it's not. It's just a placeholder while I talk. If you have not done so already, please check the link in my description and make your way over to Nick Shabazz's channel, where he's hosting a Best New YouTube Gear Reviewer contest. Myself and 49 other channels are in this contest. If you have some time and you'd like to, and you're enjoying my content or some of the content from these other channels, go through, watch their video that they've submitted to represent their channel, and fill out the form for them. That'd mean the world to them, I'm sure, and it definitely would mean the world to me. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my honorable mentions. I generally like to cheat and squeeze a few other knives into a video just because it's fun. And when I do a top 5, it means I don't have 10 to represent what I'm trying to do here. So that's why I squeeze in these honorable mentions. But anyways, first honorable mention, the recent Ozark Trail knives. And I say recent because some of the Ozark Trail knives have been junk. These two in particular, I think are excellent. Now, when somebody asks me like, hey man, I just want to spend like $5 on a pocket knife, like what's the best $5 pocket knife out there? And the truth to that is probably nothing. Even the best, these two right here, honestly, these are the best $5 or less pocket knives that I have ever had my hands on. I still don't trust them 100%, but I think they're some of the best things out there. Here lately, Ozark Trails, or Ozark Trail, I'm never sure. Let's see. Ozark Trail, there's no S on the end of it. Here lately, they've gotten a little bit better. And that I just mean in terms of a, fairly ergonomic design, functional thumb studs, and a blade that has been kind of properly sharpened. It'll cut. It'll deploy. Minimal blade play, the lockup seems fairly solid. That's essentially what I'm after there, is just a functional design. This flipper here, this is the only knife I would say under $15 I've ever seen that actually flipped properly, and by that I mean has a detent that is tuned to flip without the assistance of a spring. So this is an honorable mention to me for somebody who's really, really on a budget. You can have these knives, or you can find these knives anywhere from $1 to $5 from what I've heard. And both of these knives just kind of lay around my house and get used for whatever. But that's honestly what I would recommend to somebody at $5 or less. Moving on here. The next honorable mention, I have to put this one in here. It's not quite, what I'm after here are folding knives, like locking folding knives. But I still have to put this one in here because it's really hard for me to not recommend this knife. It's been in a lot of my videos, the Victorinox Cadet. There are a lot of really good Victorinox knives out there, but the Cadet is just at $30-35. It's made out of the 60, as far as I know, 6061 T6 aluminum. Has the nice blade on it. It's got a bottle opener. It's got a can opener. It's got the nail file slash pokey thing, whatever you want to call that. Leather punch. I don't know exactly what you want to call the end of that. But there's also a flathead and a small flathead. You could call that a pry bar, whatever you want. This is an awesome tool. And $35, I mean, yeah, it's not a locking knife. It is a slip joint style knife, so everything just sort of falls back into place like that without locking. But it's really hard for me to not recommend this knife because, like I said in another video, it's been through the washing machine like 6 or 7 times. It's been stomped on accident. It's been dropped and bounced all over the place, and it's still going. I wouldn't call that an absolutely dedicated EDC, because there are definitely tasks that you would ask of a folding knife that the Victorinox Cadet probably could not tackle, but it's definitely on my top list. I mean, at least an honorable mention in this list. The third honorable mention is not a knife that I have actually reviewed yet. This is the, let me make sure and open it correctly. This is the Opinel number 8. Now, if someone were to ask me, hey, what do you think is the best, inexpensive folding knife that I could just throw in a junk drawer or leave around my house, or maybe throw in my office drawer, in my trunk console? The Opinel number 8, I think, is probably the best one. If you look up information on these Opinel knives on Blade forums or any forum or anywhere where folding knives are discussed like down to the bone, there are a ton of arguments. Generally people who are minimalist by nature who will swear by these Opinel knives. And I've heard some wild claims of what these Opinel knives are capable of accomplishing. Now, there are sizes that range all the way down to like super duper small to, way bigger than this. The number 8 is probably the size that's going to meet, more often than not, what people are requiring of their folding knives. I mean, in terms of just like it fits in your hand, I want to say it's like 8 to 8 1/4. I think it's like 7 3/4 to 8 inches. You've got a flat ground blade. It does actually lock. There's a ring mechanism up here. You turn it, locks out. Turn it this way, fold it down. There you go, easy. It is a very, very simple folding knife with essentially just a nail nick to open it back up. But this is the type of knife that is great for just having around to do little things. Open a package, open a box, open a letter, throw it back in a junk drawer, and it doesn't matter. I want to say I got this knife. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to say I got it for 15 to 20 bucks. And there are 2 versions of it. There's the stainless version and there's the high carbon version. This is the stainless version. I forget what steel it is, but to me, like that's the best, version of this that I would ever want. I was not super, it wasn't like I was like drooling to get my hands on an Opinel. I think the blade is ground in a way that's very useful. I'm happy that it's a stainless steel and it's probably easy to sharpen. That's about it. But can I recommend it to people who are just looking for just a blade to keep around for little tiny things? Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I wouldn't call this a good knife to actually carry, given that number 1, it does not have a pocket knife, and number 2, look at the thickness of these handles. I mean, it's made out of wood and it's completely round. It's not going to be the most comfortable thing to have in your pocket, but that's part of the reason why it's an honorable mention and not actually on my top 5 list. But anyways, I'm sure diehard Opinel fans will have much to say about me not having that on my actual top 5. Anyways, moving on. The first knife that's truly on my list, and I'll kind of explain my reasoning behind each one of these, and who might ask. A lot of times people will say, hey, I'm new. I don't know anything about these fancy mechanisms. I don't know a whole lot about flippers and bearings and frame locks and stuff like that. Even though those are pretty easy to manipulate. I just want something simple, maybe a back lock or a spine lock, and I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money, but I want something that's dependable. The first thing that I would recommend to them is probably the Bird Meadow Lark. And here's why. The Spyderco Delica is the premium version of this. For those of you who are not aware, Bird knives is actually Spyderco's like budget line. They're not made in the United States, but they are much less expensive for that reason. Even though the premium version of this is actually not made in the United States either, it's made in Japan. This is modeled after a knife that's very, very popular, both in terms of utility, and just weight and size and manipulation, all that stuff. This is a simple backlock pocket knife. Most people will know instinctively by now that that's how you disengage the lock on this knife. Now, on top of that, you've got a great pocket clip, a nice little lanyard hole. You've got some texturing right there. You've got most people's thumbs will just gravitate towards that hole naturally. They'll know how that works. On top of that, in my opinion, I think the ergonomics on the Meadow Lark are actually, it's technically the Meadow Lark too. They're actually better in my opinion than the Delica. Now I know Delica fans, don't burn me at the stake. It's a great knife. I'm just saying, for the money here, we're looking at probably I want to say this is a $15 to $20 knife. HCR 13 MOV, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it actually says right there. That flat ground blade, with kind of that the tip down there, you can see how that kind of drops. I mean, this is a great EDC knife. This is a great first EDC knife to kind of set the stage for what to expect, you know, as you venture on. You know, for people who want to start with a good example and then move on and, you know, kind of lay the foundation for what to expect from a good folding knife, this is a fantastic first knife, and I always, you know, readily recommend it. So awesome knife. Number 2. This is another knife that I have not reviewed yet on this channel, but I have come to absolutely love, the Cold Steel Toughlite. I cannot remember who recommended this knife to me, but when I looked up the price, I want to say it was $30 to $32. I was blown away. It's Aussate steel, and that's probably one of the only negative things I can say about it besides the position of the pocket clip, but it's so small. I mean, they weren't kidding when they named this knife Toughlite. You've got a nice, reasonably thick blade stock, extremely slicey box cutter style blade, and I can get my entire hand around this. I mean, this is a fantastic little knife for somebody who's like, you know, I'm not really into those crazy fancy folding knives, but I would like something that's a little nicer than just a folding box cutter. The Toughlite. You get the cold steel, that thing locks up just as hard as any cold steel triad lock knife that I have ever handled. So that's awesome. You've got an easy axis thumb hole there that makes it easy to deploy the knife. This nice choke up position right here. I mean, this is a great package opener. Absolutely. And that's what 99% of people are doing with their knives every single day. They're just getting their pocket knives out, they're opening up letters and packages and bags and whatever, and then they're moving on. So 100% when someone says, hey, I need like, you know, a really tough tool, but I don't have a whole lot of money to spend, and it's basically just going to be, you know, cutting straps, cutting rope, opening up boxes, things like that. I don't need anything big, but I want to get my hands all the way around it. You know, I mean, that's oddly specific. But yeah, the Cold Steel Toughlite. Plastic, the only steel on the inside is really just the triad lock and the blade itself. And Aussate isn't a steel that I particularly love, but at $32, I don't really care. So the Toughlite definitely takes the number 2 spot on my list. Number 3. I was hesitant about putting this one on the list, but I can't deny that I love it. And a big part of this channel is honesty. I want you guys to know exactly how I feel about the knives that I have access to. So if I'm being completely honest with myself, this one does make the list, and it's purely just fit and finish, cost, and materials, you know, and how easy this knife is to manipulate that's throwing it on the list. Number 3, the Gonzo FH11. This knife is $25. The handle materials, G10. Those of you who don't know anything about G10, it is a material that you'll find from on a $5 knife, like this one, all the way up to, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars on a custom knife. That's kind of a, you know, a crazy exaggeration, but G10 is a fantastic durable material. This particular knife has a D2 steel blade, making it one of the least expensive D2 blades that I've ever seen. In fact, I think the entire Gonzo Firebird line is now D2. Now, the reason I was hesitant about putting this knife on the list is because Gonzo has a bad track record of copying designs. And when I brought this up about the FH11 looking like the Liangma Warrior, a lot of people said, yeah, but, you know, there's a lot of knife designs that look like that, and, you know, who's really copying who? You know, it's a really straightforward design, straightforward handle, straightforward blade shape. I agree with that to a degree. I hope that Gonzo Knives does get better about, you know, direct copies. That really isn't cool. That needs to stop. But man, you know, somebody's like, hey, I really like these like cool flipper knives that aren't assisted. You know, these bearing knives. I've handled a couple of them. Are there any that are like inexpensive that fire really well? Yes, there are. The Gonzo FH11 is one of the most straightforward, simple designs that runs on bearings, that actually locks out super hard, has that really satisfying fidget factor. I mean, this thing is almost, it's honestly, it's almost a free dropper. Look at this. For somebody who really has an emphasis on fidget factor and is limited to $25, but looking for a decent steel in that price range, good fit and finish, oh my gosh, look no further than the Gonzo FH11. Centered up blade, solid early lockup, running on bearings, countersunk steel liners. It doesn't weigh that much. It actually cuts really well. You know, the blade shape is made really well. Yeah, 100% I can recommend that. Just come on, Gonzo, let's fix your copying thing. Absolutely. Okay, moving on to number 2. I know a lot of you are thinking, when is he? Surely this is going to be either the number 2 or the number 1 knife. The Ontario Rat Model 1 or number 2. I know I'm cheating. I'm squeezing that one in there even though I'm not showing it. If you're not aware of this knife yet, I mean, like every single person, in my opinion, every single person in the knife world, whether you're somebody who just is like, I'm a minimalist user of tools. I just use them for what they're intended to be used for, and then I put them back in my pocket. I throw them around. I don't really care. They're just tools. Or you're somebody who's, keeps precious heirloom folding knives in a display case, and you oil them and you dust them and you do all this. You read them a story before you go to bed. It doesn't matter which type of person you are. The Ontario Rat Model 1 or 2 in D2 steel should be a part of your collection. That's my honest opinion. This is a nearly perfect knife at under $50. You have a flat ground blade. You've got, this particular one is 8.6 inches overall. You've got a very, very easy thumb stud deployment. You've got multi-directional pocket clip positions, tip up, tip down, left or right-handed carry. It's a very solid, very stout liner lock. You've got nice thick, it's actually not G10, it's a nylon or acrylic or FRN, whatever you want to call that. I mean, very tough. And you guys have heard me talk about this knife so many times on my channel. It seems like it's made like my last 3 top 5 videos in one way, shape, or form. I don't know exactly how many it's been on, but it's definitely been up there. Ergonomics are on point. It's just an excellent folding knife. It's a very purpose-built folding knife. D2 steel, of course, again, that's one of, if not the very best steel that you can get in this price range. This knife runs about $44. And I want to say the Rat 2 runs $40 even, or $38, something like that. Between $38 and $44 for this knife, it is a no-brainer. When somebody asks me, hey, listen, I need a knife that I, can really depend on every single day. I work outside. I don't want to spend a lot of money, but I'm aware that there are better steels out there than this gas station junk that I've been using. Do you have something, simple, straightforward that you can recommend that I can really use for just about anything? Yes, the Rat 1. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I have legitimately gone out in my backyard and used this thing for just about anything. Somebody just wanting a smaller version of that for just, not quite as heavy a tasks, then the Rat 2. I mean, but these two still reign supreme despite having been available for a very, very long time. And in my opinion, I think they kind of started this whole inexpensive knife with D2 steel and decent fit and finish craze. I mean, this kind of seems like the knife that started it all. And in my opinion, it's still right up there at the top, though it does not take the number 1 spot for me. And those of you thinking that I was going to put the Rat 1 at number 1, most of my regular viewers and subscribers thought for sure he's going to put the Rat 1 in D2 as the number 1 spot. Well, now hopefully I've got you in suspense. Hopefully you're sitting there thinking, what the heck could it possibly be? What does he think is the number 1 most recommended budget knife at or under $50 that exists? Well, I'm here to tell you guys that I'm the type of YouTuber who really likes to build up suspense for no reason. And I know that's frustrating you guys, and I know you're like, shut up, stop making jokes, and just show us the knife so we can move on. Hopefully to more of my videos, right? Okay, the number 1 knife that I can recommend under $50 is the Tac Force Range. No, I'm totally kidding. Why would I recommend that? That's terrible. I'm sorry. Okay, all the jokes are over. I promise. I'm done with all the jokes. The number 1 knife that I recommend to people at or under $50 is the Bestech Lion in D2. Oh my gosh, guys, this is my favorite knife at or under $50. And I know a lot of you, who are like is super on the up and up in the knife world are like, that's cheating, that's a $52 knife. Yeah, it's a $52 knife, but let me tell you something, that's not going to stop me from recommending it to somebody who's like, listen, I've got $50 to spend. What is the absolute best knife out there for $50? The Bestech Lion. Absolutely. Again, not made in the United States, but look at this slightly contoured G10 on the front. Nice and smooth. You've got a nice looking front pivot. A little bit of texturing right there. Full steel liners that come all the way out to the lips, giving it the rigidity that I like in the Ontario Rat 1. But it also has the refinedness or the refined feeling and the flipping action of what I like in the Gonzo Firebird FH11. This knife also really reminds me in terms of just feeling when I pick it up, it's kind of like a Benchmade Griptilian that I can flip. You've got a nice drop point blade, ground extremely well, a nice flat, a nice swedge, not too thick up here, but you've got some jimping. You've got a nice, pokey tip that doesn't look like it's going to break on you. It's not super thin up there, but the blade looks incredible. The grind lines, it was ground symmetrically and just perfectly. And it actually does. It slices really, really well. You've got the adjustment side, Torx head pivot there, just a couple of little body screws. Yeah, they're that small size that nobody likes, but that's okay. You got a nice looking steel backspacer that doubles as the lanyard hole and the glass breaker that I actually trust would break glass really, really well. Absolutely. I mean, if that's what you're into, I don't really care that it's there, but that's fine. Pocket clip, simple but effective. Has that nice divot right there, easy to pull in and out of the pocket. You absolutely have the fidget factor with this. You can shake it shut. It runs on bearings. D2 steel, has the flipping action. You can light switch it, or you can do the push button. You don't have a crappy landing zone for your finger down here, so you can flip this all day on the couch. And if you're flipping it and you're not paying attention and it flips right out of your hand and it falls down the storm drain and you never see it again, oh well, it was $50. But in all seriousness, this is one of the, I truly think this is like the best knife at the $50 price point. This knife would set such an amazing example for anybody going from just guy who carries knife to guy who really cares about the knife in his pocket. I mean, this thing is really going to set a bar for people. You're going to have a hard time topping that. You're going to handle knives all the way up to $150 that are not going to impress you as much as the Bestech Lion. In fact, let me say this. Being somebody who's kind of a snob and probably spends way too much money on the knives in his pocket, Bestech, I know you've got, I don't know if anybody from Bestech's ever going to watch this. I know you've got your premium line and you've got your budget line, and this is more in line with your budget line. Please make a premium version of this. Please. I would love to see this in titanium and M390 and a cool inlay or a cool pivot collar or, kind of what you guys did with the Ornetta. I still haven't reviewed, actually, depending on the time of when I upload this, maybe I have reviewed the Ornetta. Here's the Ornetta right here. So this is what Bestech is capable of on their premium stuff. You've got an M390 blade. You can see it right there. Nice sort of brass pivot collar. All this beautiful milling on the titanium. Give me that in the Lion. I want to see that. I want to know what that looks like, because you will have a purchase from me. Absolutely. I love this knife. I think it's very deserving of my #1 spot. If you are looking for a $50 knife and you don't know much about folding knives, but you want something that sets a good example in your pocket, seriously, go buy the Bestech Lion in D2. You can get it in tan, you can get it in OD green, and you can get it in black like you're seeing here. They're pretty readily available. It's not something that you're going to have a hard time finding, but the ergonomics are just fantastic. About 8 inches overall. 3.5 inch cutting edge. Just perfect. That's going to be pretty much it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you were entertained by it. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks for watching and have a great day.